Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. It's been a while, actually, since the last time I had to upload a video to the channel. This year, I have a lot of students who are still kind of struggling with pre-algebra after all of the wonderful things that have been happening for the last year and a half in terms of distant, remote, hybrid, and whatever word you want to use learning. So for today, we're going to be looking at pre-algebra goal 3, which is not what I have written down. So give me a second. Let me cross that out and fix that for you. This is, in fact, goal 3 that we're looking at. Ta-da! All fixed. What we're going to be doing, goal 3 is vaguely small compared to some of the other chapters, and most of my students appear to be in goal 3, so I want to start doing some tutorials here. I don't completely know where everyone is in terms of being in goal 3 yet. I don't have the data memorized, so I'm just going to start right here in the beginning at the first cluster of topics. Now, as we go through these topics, you're going to notice that you're first going to be getting used to what ratios are, and then you're going to get used to simplifying ratios, which is going to be a very big thing. And then I believe it's a little bit after that that we actually start doing some real honest-to-God proportion work. So first we want to talk about what ratios actually are and get an idea of what they look for. So we're going to scroll down to our sample problems. Use the following ratio using 2 other notations. Here's the thing about ratios. There are 3 ways to make a ratio, and I'm going to use this number as an example. They all say the same thing. You always read it, in this particular case, as 7 to 1, but how you write it happens in one of 3 ways. It's 7 to 1. It could be 7 to 1, or it could be 7 to 1 as a fraction. So you have the colon, you have the word 2, and then you have the fraction. These are 3 viable ways in order to write something as a proportion. So, or a ratio, excuse me, as a ratio. I want to use the right word here. Proportions come later. So knowing that one of the methods is given, we can check that off. So all that's left is to write 7 to 1 and then 7 over 1, which is what it will look like in the software. So those are now checked off. The next thing is going to be looking at our new problem. We now have 1 over 5. So the fraction part has already been done. We just need to write it in the other 2 ways. So 1 to 5 and then 1 to 5, so that those are checked off. Now keep in mind when you're going through this, order matters. In my terrible capital letter handwriting, order matters. If this is the number that's on top, then this is the number that's listed first in your ratio. If this is the number that's listed second, or in this case in the denominator, then that's the number that's going to be listed second in your ratio. So top is going to be first, bottom is going to be second. That's kind of your rule of thumb. So now over here we know what to do. We know it a little bit from over here in the first problem, but we also understand more clearly how to set it up with confidence. The easy one is going to be 8 to 7. That's the easy part, but when you're setting up the fraction, since 8 was listed first, 8 gets listed first in the fraction, 7 is second, and therefore goes up the denominator. So that's how the ratios are done in terms of setting up and how you read a ratio. Now, since that's just, this in general, let's actually figure out what it looks like in a real world situation. And wording is going to be important here because, again, I will say this as many times as necessary, order matters when you're doing this. So you notice how 17 books are listed first. Or actually, let me read this. There are 17 books on a shelf. 9 of these books are new. The rest of them are used. Okay, so 17 books, 9 of these are new. Now, here's something the software does for you. Let me reword it. Here's something the software does to trick you. It does technically say the rest of them are used, but they don't actually give you a number. Especially for my strugglers, I always recommend finding that number first. So very quickly, if there's 17 books total, 9 of them are new. So 17 minus 9, that means 8 of the books are used. So that way, depending on what they ask us down here, we have all of the information we need, and they're not trying to sort of, have a gotcha moment and say, ha ha ha. So what is the ratio of used books to new books? So remember, used is going to go first and new is going to go second. So what are the used books? Well, we didn't let them trick us. We now know what it is. The used books is 8, and then the new books is 9, and that's how we can write our ratio. And because we already know from up in here that how we write the ratio, there's 3 ways to do it, and you can pick your favorite. Personally, for Ms. Dubois, I always liked the colon. I always found it very visually very snappy and pleasing, and I'm just weird that way. Next, what is the ratio of all books? So what's the number for all books? 17. And what's the number of used books? 8. So we're going to write 17 to 8 in order to get our information. Over here, let's see here. You'll notice they tell us 8 red marbles, 9 blue marbles, but they don't give us a total. So let's just make a quick note of that so they don't trick us and leave us wondering what that is. 8 plus 7 is going to be 17 for our total. So theoretically, if they ask us for it, we know what we're doing. What is the ratio of all marbles? See, we need that 17 already, to the red marbles. So the all marbles is 17. The red marbles is which number? 8. What is the ratio of blue marbles to all marbles? Blue is first and blue is 9. To what is all marbles? 17. So now we can say we've lost our marbles. Sorry. Okay, I couldn't help myself. The world was begging for it. Next, now that we know how to read problems and read sentences in order to get ratios, and we understand how ratios are written, we want to make sure we can put that information to use. And this is less of a topic and more of a test of your ability to read. So when we look at this, we have order matters, pickup trucks to SUVs. So this too goes to the first thing, which is the pick-up truck. Wish me luck. Pick-up truck. I had enough space. Haha. Then the 7 is the second number, so that goes to the SUVs. Now, let's see here. Check all of the statements that must be true based on the above statement. If none of the statements is true, check none of the above. So now they're testing your reading skills. For every 2 pickup trucks, so does 2 link to pickup? Yes. There are 7 SUVs. Does 7 link to SUV? Yes. For every 2 SUVs, does 2 match to SUVs? No. So this one I can see at a first glance is not what I want because these 2 pieces of information do not match. Up here, the 2 in the pickup trucks, those 2 pieces of information do match, but over here it doesn't. For every 7 pickup trucks, does 7 match to pickup? Does 7 match to pickup? No. So this one is wrong. There are exactly 2 pickup trucks and exactly 7 SUVs. Now this one's a trick question because 2 and pickup, they match. 7 and SUVs, they match, but they have that very extra word, exactly. And here's the thing about ratios. Ratios aren't exact. That's kind of the whole point of ratios. So this is an ixnay, and this ended up being the only box we checked off. Now it's interesting for me. I thought we'd be checking off more than one. Let's see how it works for the next one. The ratio of used books, and immediately I'm going to label that. So this is used. The ratio of used books to new books. So this one is new. So now I know what numbers get linked up to what words. For every 5 new books, is 5 linked to new? No, it's not. Ixnay. For every 2 used books, is 2 used to linked up with used? No, ixnay. For every 2 new books, that's true. There are 5 used books, 5 to used. That one looks good. There are 2 used books, that's true. 2, there's the word 2. That's all the way from up here. That's one of our ways to write a ratio. So this is going to look one's looking pretty swanky. 2 used books for 5. Nah, I can't read. There are 2 used books to every 5 new books. So 2 is for used. Oh. See, they wrote it right, but they matched the numbers wrong. So this is the only one that we're checking off as correct. The rest of them are all ixnay. So this one is less of a, again, this is less of a topic and more of a wording. So long as you're labeling your numbers to the key words of whatever sentence they give you, this one shouldn't give you much challenge. Now we start getting into the actual math part of this. So when we're looking at this, what have we got? Let's see here. Write the ratio as a fraction in simplest form. Now, theoretically, fractions in simplest form you saw and had exposure to in earlier chapters in pre-algebra, but in case it's been a while, what we're going to do, let's see here, whole numbers, numerator and denominator. Okay, so because we know about from up here for the fractions, order matters, and because the number that goes on top is the number that's listed first, when we go back down here, that 54 goes on top and then the 30 goes on bottom. Now, the trick here next is going to be that we need to simplify this fraction. It literally tells you simplest form. So they're not even subtle in telling you that you need to reduce this fraction. Technically, if you have a calculator in my room, there is a button on the calculator that will do this for you. I do not have that calculator in my room, and I don't have a calculator emulator that I could find quickly in order to model this. So Ms. Dubois is going to do this the hard way. Looking at this quickly, I can see that these are two even numbers. So I'm going to divide by 2 and divide by 2. Let's see here. Human calculator, Ms. Dubois, activate. 54 divided by 2 is going to be 27, and then 30 divided by 2 is going to be 15. All right, that takes care of all of the even numbers. Are there any numbers these are both divisible by? If you don't know your math facts, this can be a challenge, but I happen to know that these are also both divisible by 3. 27 divided by 3 is 9. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Can I pare that down anymore? No, I can't. So that's going to be the final answer that they're looking for. And again, for those of you who are in my classroom, you have the calculators in my room, and there's a button that will do this for you. Let's see here. Now, again, the 40 is going to go on top. So 40 over 72. Now, that's interesting. They're both even numbers, so my brain wants to divide by 2. But I also have 40, which I know is divisible by 4. So I'm just going to check really quick. Is 40 divisible? 1 and then 32. It is. Okay. So we're going to divide by 4. Ms. Dubois is cheating a little bit because I know my math facts a little bit better than other people. That will get me 10. And then 72 divided by 4 is going to get me, what was 32 divided by 4? 8. Next, we have 10 over 18. We can actually divide it again. So divide by 2, because again, those are two even numbers. That's going to be 5 over 9. And there's our final fraction. Oh, it's the reciprocal of this one. That's interesting. I wasn't expecting that. Next, we have 20 goes on top because 20 is first, and then 35 goes on bottom. Now, these are not both even numbers, but I happen to know these are both divisible by 5 and divisible by 5. So let's see here. 20 divided by 5 is 4. 35 divided by 5 is 7. And can that be simplified, or are we done? Yeah, that can't be simplified. And that's how you're going through. Again, the calculator is going to be your friend. Ms. Dubois in her apartment does not have that special calculator, so I have to do this live in person in my head, and you all get to laugh at me when I make inevitably a mistake. Next, now this is ratios with whole numbers. The other thing they're going to let you do, and this is true very much in real life, is that they're going to give you ratios with decimals. This, Ms. Dubois gets to cheat a little bit more just because I know some of my math facts, and I've been working really hard in the last couple of years to get good with decimals. So 5 goes first, that goes on top. 2.5 goes second, that goes on bottom. Now, when Ms. Dubois is being a human calculator, what I end up doing, and again, you guys have a button on the calculator to do this, but I don't. I happen to know I can move my decimal over and move my decimal over. That I think was earlier in pre-algebra. I haven't done those video tutorials yet. That will get me, because that's 5.0. That gets me 50 over, wow, not that I can write apparently. Let's try that again. That gets me 50 over 25, which simplifies to 2 over 1. Or if you're lazy like me, you can just write 2. Either of those the computer will accept as a correct answer. 4 goes on top. And I'm going to write 4.0 for my brain. And then 6.4 goes on bottom because that was listed. Move the decimal over, move the decimal over. That gets me 40 over 64. What's the biggest number I can divide by? Probably 8. So divide by 8, divide by 8. That's going to get me 40 divided by 8 is 5. 64 divided by 8 is, brain turn on, 8. And now 5/8 is going to be my fraction in simplest form. And for my last one, ooh, they're challenging us now. We have 0.36 goes on top because it was listed first, and 0.30 on the bottom. And because I have this little decimal trick that I've been doing the last two, I'm going to move the decimal over 2 places to get me 36. I'm going to move the decimal over 2 places to get me 30. Now, what are both of those divisible by? I think 6 is my best number. So 36 divided by 6, 30 divided by 6. 36 divided by 6 is 6. 30 divided by 6 is 5. And there's your fraction in simplest form. And again, for you guys, you're going to have a calculator in my classroom in order to make this easier for you. And I'll show calculator, Ms. Dubois. And I'll show you what buttons you're going to be hitting in the calculator because it's a scientific calculator. It has a special button for this. And that will make the work even easier for you. Now that we understand, so to recap, we've gone through, we've talked about ratios just in general. We've gotten used to the simplifying. And now it's time for us to do some very basic computation. One of the most common ratios you will see in real life is a unit price. Like literally, I just went grocery shopping yesterday. I was walking down the aisles and they listed underneath the sales price what the unit price was in case you wanted to find your better buy, which conveniently is a topic we're going to be doing later, FYI. So to begin, we have $3.84 for a bag of 16 tangerines. We want to find the unit price per tangerine. Oh, they're going to make me pull out a calculator, aren't they? Gosh darn it. So here's the thing for unit price. Money always goes on top. And then whatever your extra number is what goes on bottom. So if you're someone who likes to know the format of something, that's the format that we are looking for here. So 3.84 over, as a fraction, 16. Now, in order to do that, we need to pull out a calculator, which means I need to hit pause for a second and find the calculator on my computer. Give me a second. Okay, and we're back. I found the calculator. I got a new computer and now I'm lost. This is how it goes. All right, so we have the money amount, which is the 3.84, and we're going to divide by the 16, enter, and so our unit price is going to be 0.24, I think. Yeah, 0.24, to round your answer to the nearest cent. So they want it in money format. So $0.24 is going to be your unit price. Same thing again. We have that 3.15. That's the money, so it goes on top. The 15 pence goes on bottom. Click. So now we're going to escape out of this, clear, and we're going to do 3.15 divided by 15, enter, 0.21. So our answer here is going to be 0.21, rounding to the nearest cent. We've been lucky so far. We haven't had to do any rounding, but I am nervous because they do say rounding, and my brain tells me that immediately at some point we're going to get some ugly decimal that we're going to have to round. Maybe we're lucky. Next, oh, you notice for this one, they tricked us because they didn't give it to us in the right order. So a reminder, money goes on top, 3.68 divided by 16. And what do we have there? Calculator. We have 3.68 divided by, what number was it? 16. Enter. 0.23. All right, so my computer apparently generated some decent problems for us. We didn't have to have any weird decimals and everything divided pretty evenly. I don't know if that will be true for you guys when you're actually in the software because they say the word round. I'm expecting something hideous to throw at you. If you remember how to round your decimals, you should be good. Next, that's unit price, and now we want to start doing some comparisons. Comparing ratios is going to be the bulk of this chapter. Over the course of the videos, you're going to see me setting up the same thing over and over and over again. But first, we kind of want to get you used to how the setup actually works. So, what have we got here? A factory tested 3 machines to make widgets. The table below shows the number of... Oh, no, my screen grab didn't work well. All right, let's see if we can do this with just the table. Write the number of widgets made per hour for each machine. per hour. Okay, so notice how they have it set it up. Number of widgets per hour. So that means the number that goes with your widget goes on top, and then your hour goes on the bottom. Because again, and I will say it until I'm blue in the face, order matters. Order matters. Order matters. So when we're going down to this, machine A, what's the number of widgets? 10. What's the number of hours? 5. And I don't even need a calculator for that. What's 10 divided by 5? 2. There's our first one. Number of widgets per hour for machine B. So the number of widgets is 24. What's the number of hours? 8. And now I go through 24 divided by 8, 3. Number of widgets for C, which is 45. Number of hours, 9. 45 divided by 9. Again, human calculator, it is 5. Select the machine that was the fastest. Fastest meaning that they made the most machines in the shortest amount of time. And that's pretty obviously going to be machine C. So that's the one you end up boxing. Second problem is a new verse, same as the first. So we're making flyers last Tuesday. The table shows the number of flyers for each person made and how much time each person spent. Okay. What is the time spent per flyer for each person? So time goes on top and then flyer goes on the bottom. So time for Lamar is what? 56. And then the number of flyers is 8. What's 56 divided by 8? 7. There's my answer. Time spent on the flyer for Jim. So time is 54 divided by 9. Again, I'm just lining up the data they give us. 54 divided by 9 is 6. Time spent per flyer for Abdul. So time is 20. And then flyers is 4. 20 divided by 4 is 5. Which person worked the fastest? Fastest meaning they got the most done. That's person number 1, which is Lamar. I can only think of LeVar Burton from Reading Rainbow. I don't know why. Anyway, I'm old. Now we're going to combine these two things. So we had unit price up here, and we're comparing ratios here. And when you put those two things together, you get the most common real life ratio thing ever, and that's called finding the better buy. Let me darken the boundary here because I had trouble with the screen grab. So we have two ratios, and they give it to us in two sentences. So one ratio, one sentence. Here is our first ratio, 14.2 over 4. Oh no, but it's unit price. Unit price. See, the system tricked me. The software wanted me to do it wrong, and I'm not going to let it. When you're dealing with unit price, the money has to go first. 4.99 divided by 14.2. And now I'm going to pull out my calculator, and divide that out. 4.99 divided by 14.2. Enter. Look at that ugly decimal. I was expecting that earlier. Okay. 3514. So 0.3514. Now, because this is in money, we're going to need to round it to 2 decimal places. So there's my 2 decimal place. And this one right here, the one that's my decision maker. Remember, if it's 5 or more, you round up. If it's 4 or less, you round down. So this makes me round down. So my answer for this is going to be 0.35. That's my first one. Then, can I afford to erase all my work? I'll risk it. My next one, they have in a new sentence over here. And again, money goes first because they tried to trick me just now. 6.97 over 23.7. Pull out my handy calculator. Why do I have to triple click you? There you go. Good calculator. Clear. What do we have? We have 6.97 divided by 23.7. Enter. That's another ugly mess of a thing. So 2940. So 0.2940, I think. I don't even remember. It is 40. Okay. So there is my second decimal place, and that 4 right there is my decision maker. Because it's 4 or less, I round down. 0.29. There are my two answers. And now, which one is the better by? The 0.29. And what's the 0.29? The 23.7. That's what gets clicked off for the answer for this. Now we get to do it again for a second problem, making sure we're on the same page. So first one, money goes on top, so 1.87 over 24. And what's the second one, just so that I can have it written out? 2.87 is the money, and then 42 goes underneath. All right, so now we get to do some math. Calculator, clear. We have 1.87 divided by 24, and that's going to get us 0.0779. 0.0779. There's my second decimal point. This one's my decision maker. Now for this one, that's 5 or more, so we're rounding up. So for this one, we're going to put 0.78 because of the rounding. Now, again, we have clear. We have 2.87 divided by 42. Enter. 0.0683. So 0.0683. There's my second decimal place. Here is my decision maker. That's 4. No, that's not. That's 5 or more, so it rounds up. Computer, what did you just do? 5 or more, so it rounds up. So instead of writing 0.06, I'm going to write 0.07. And I just noticed I wrote this down wrong because it's going to be 0.08. Shame on all of you for not pointing out the fact that I made a mistake, because I still need to input this decimal point and I didn't. Ah, boy. All right. Now, which one is the better buy? In other words, which one's cheaper? And in this case, that's going to be brand B. So we found a couple of things in this particular topic that will make things tricky for students. First, apparently they're not going to give you the money first to remind you that money is supposed to go on top of the numerator. Second, when you do your rounding, you do have to low-key be very careful of it. And in my particular case, make sure you write it correctly, or otherwise you miscopy and get it wrong for no reason. So there are two things to be mindful of in this topic, but the work itself, the actual computation, is not that bad. Now, we're starting to close out towards the end of this particular group of topics. We got a couple more left. Let's see here. Solving a word problem on proportions using a unit rate. And this is where we finally start setting up some proportions here. You'll notice 464 miles in 8 hours. I can write that as a fraction. First number goes on top, so 464 in 8 hours. Now, oh wait, I want to note the units of measure here. So the 464 is miles and the 8 is hours. I'm writing that right now because especially for beginners, when you're new to proportions, we were talking again, order matters. I'm not even remotely subtle anymore, but because order matters, you want to make sure things are matching when you're setting up your second fraction here. Because you'll notice the only other piece of information they give us is 12 hours. And the question I get from a lot of kids, or at least the point of confusion when I point this out to them, I will say, okay, where does the 12 go? It's in hours. And a lot of students, because they don't write down their units of measure, have to balk for a second, and a lot of them will get it wrong because they didn't write down. If you do write down your units of measures, then you know hours matches with hours, and therefore the 12 goes here. And the cool part is that this is your unknown, and we finally get to use a variable. I'm going to put an X there very deliberately. Now that I don't need my units of measures, I'm going to erase them just visually so that I know what I'm looking at. A lot of kids tell me that they remember the phrase from middle school, cross multiply. Not everyone remembers how to do it, but everyone does remember hearing it. So it's worth remembering. Cross multiply means, is my thing going to do it? There we go. The diagonals get multiplied. So now I am going to do 8 times x. That's a little bit easier for my brain. That's 8 times x because I mean, like literally, I don't know what the x is. I have to leave it as a variable. Now, 464 times 12. I could probably do that in my head, but it would take me a lot longer and my video's already running long. So we'll do 464 times 12. And what do we get? Ooh, what a deliciously big number. 5568. Now this I should be able to do in my head. because this is, and we'll get into this more in goal 4, and I know this is kind of a sneak preview, but because this is a variable, that's multiplication. We were just talking about how it's 8 times x. To undo multiplication, what you want to do is the opposite of multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide by 8. And what I do to one side of the equation, I do to the other. Divide by 8. Now watch the human calculator do her work. So that's going to be, it doesn't quite get to 7, so that's going to be 6, and then that's going to be 7, and then that's going to be 1. Our final answer is going to be 671 miles. And that's how the work is done. Now, again, you guys will have calculators. Ms. Dubois has to do a decent amount of this in her head. Next up, there's my first fraction, 18 inches on top, 54 cents on the bottom. Actually, because it's cents and I want to use a unit of measure, I'll do it like this so I don't get confused. Next, how much in cents will be 15 inches of wire? And because it's inches and I want it to match, we're going to go across its neighbors with its fellow inches, and it's going over there. This is the unknown. Now that I'm done with the units of measure, personally, I'm going to erase it so it doesn't confuse me. We have 18 times x. Ooh, I don't know if I can do division that high in my head. And then we have 54 times 15. So we're going to pull out the calculator, shimmy it over where I can read my work. What is 54, computer? I know you're brand new, but you know me already. I worked with you all summer. 54 times 15, enter, is 810. 810. Ooh, I might be able to do that in my head. Give me a second. I'm going to put in a guess. I know we're dividing by 18, and I know we're dividing by 18. No, I might not know it in my head. Okay, fine. We'll use the calculator. I'll admit defeat just this once, but I know it's divisible. Oh, I thought it was in the 40s. I should have said that. Okay, so 45. Anyway, 45 what? 45 cents. And I know if you haven't done cross multiplying before, I'll help throw in a few extra problems, but I'm going to do it a little bit faster now because we're more comfortable with the work. 119 for 7, so 119, and that's money, over 7 hours, and that's going to be x because the 17 is hours in here. Now we don't need to write the hours anymore, so now we're going to cross multiply 7x equals whatever the heck 17 times 119 is. So 17 times 119 is going to be 2023. 2023. Isn't that like next year or something? Or the year after? That's convenient. And now we're going to divide by 7. And we're going to get 289. X equals $289. 289. Isn't that like 17 squared? That would be cool if it was. Next problem. We have first sentence. So it's 18 inches to 70. Oops, what just happened? 72 cents. And then what are we looking for? It's 52 cents. So 52 cents goes on the bottom, and that's our unknown. So it's going to be 72x equals whatever 18 times 52 is. Clear. 18 times 52, enter, is 936. 936. And then what's 936 divided by 72? 13. X equals 13 inches. I did those last two problems a little bit faster, but theoretically you remember, or at least your memory is now jogged with your cross multiplying. Only a couple more topics left. Let's see here, finding the missing values in tables. If you've noticed, because we're doing all this like multiplication and division, if you're decent with your math facts, this topic actually low-key becomes kind of chill. Because what they do on a silver platter is they hand you a ratio that's already 100% complete. So if I'm looking at that, I'm going to look at 4 over 36. I happen to know that's 36 divided by 4, which is going to be 9. What that means now is, did I give myself enough room to write this? When I'm pushing down, I am multiplying by 9. That's a little hard to read. But over here, I'm going to multiply by 9. 9 times 5, this answer is 45. Push down, and I'm multiplying by 9. 7 times 9 is 63. Now here I'm doing the reverse. Instead of pushing down, I'm pushing up. So I have to do the reverse operation. Instead of multiplying by 9, I'm dividing by 9. 81 divided by 9 is 9. And then over here, I'm pushing down, so I'm multiplying. So 10 times 9, this answer will be 90. Again, for the second one, they give you the ratio right there, bold and capital letters. So when I push down, what I'm doing is I am dividing by 5. 20 divided by 5 is 4. So that's what I do when I push down. Is there anything else that pushes down? Yes. Over here, this pushes down. So I'm going to do 45 divided by 5. That's going to get me 9. Now for the rest of these, I'm not pushing down, I'm pushing up. So the opposite, that's the opposite. Down is the up is the opposite of down. I promise words work, which means what's the opposite of division? Multiplication. So now instead of dividing by 5, I'm going to multiply by 5. 6 times 5 is going to be 30. 7 times 5 is going to be 35. 10 times 5 is going to be 50. So I find when I show the pattern for students, this topic tends to be a little bit easier for them. And then we're going to do another variation on the theme. We're going to go through it all again and just make it look visually as complicated as possible. Again, the software will do this sometimes to psych yourself out. Do not let it. This is work we've been doing for the entire video. You know what to do at this point. So I'm looking at this at a glance. And what are we trying to find? We're trying to figure out, let's see here, whether this does not always go the same distance or if it does. So what they're doing here is when you go and figure out your numbers like you were doing up here in these two topics, what happens now is when you go down for each set of numbers, if it's a proportion, it goes the same amount every time. So if I go 16 and 4 and divide, I get 4. 32 divided by 8, that's 4. 36 divided by 9, that's 4. I got the same number every time. Because it's the same number every time, that means that yes, indeed, we are going to be going the same minute. And since what was the number that we ended up getting, it's going to be 4 clicks. Or no, predicted in 10 minutes. Oh, no, I looked and I made a boo-boo. Okay, so here again, the software tried to trick me. I don't know why the software does this, but we're not going to let it trick you. Because you'll notice it says 10 minutes. And there is a thingamabob in the box that says time. So now what they've effectively done, I have to erase this even though I wrote it to be useful, is that 10 goes in a new box that looks like this. And now that I know pushing down was division, pushing up is multiplication. What's 10 times 4? 40, and that's the number that ends up going in here. Now we're going to look, let's see here. 2 times what is 16? That's 8. 3 times what is 24? That is 8. 8 times what is 56? That's 7. Uh-oh. So we got an 8, we got an 8, but then we got a 7. These are not the same. And because it's not the same number, there is no way that this is going to be always the same. And then we don't have to worry about part 2 of the problem. Now that's a little bit more nuanced. There's a little bit more work there. So I'll give you a second problem so that you can kind of low-key understand what's happening. Again, 28 divided by what gets me 4? 7. 48 divided by what gets me 8? 6. I can already see we got a different number. 54 divided by what gets me 9? 6. So I have a 7, I have a 6, and I have a 6. These are not the same number, therefore they are not, whoops, wrong button. These are not the same distance every time. Over here, 2 times what gets me 16? 8. 3 times what gets me 24? 8. 7 times what gets me 56? 8. I got the same number every time, therefore it is in fact proportional. And now they tell us what? 8 people So which one is 8 people? I'm going to erase this for a second so I can read the table better. Number in the group. So the 8 they gave us now goes where over here they gave us the bottom row of numbers. Here they're giving us the top row of numbers. So there's an 8 in my new box, and I need to figure out what my new number is. And since I'm multiplying by 8 every time, my answer here is going to be 64, and that's what ends up going here. And so that is the first collection of problems for pre-algebra goal 3. After this, we're going to, for the next video, go through the next family, which is we're going to be doing all of the proportion work, which I did in one of the topics in a lot more detail, and we'll start picking through the topics from there. Thank you. As always, stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe in transmission.